I agree with him. The police should not come. It doesn't mean you stop to collect this revenue. So what are you going to do, guys? What are you going to do? Thank you.
You are advised to think outside the box, probably like KRA. Think outside the box so that you only involve the police when necessary. So I give this to any other members.
Yeah, I think I agree with Honorable Shege, because in principle, we need to copy from best practices. We can't just be using the police to serve as debt collectors. Because if you go to the first world, the artists there are well enumerated, and they don't use the police to reinforce this. So we need to have an agreement without necessarily calling for the police to act as debt collectors. Because you heard it very clearly. That's exactly what I mentioned about extortion and harassment. Because when you use the police, there's what goes around, the element of scaring the citizens. And that is why we fully support the CS in that particular decision, and they say an MOU is needed, as opposed to just taking out or calling the police to be reinstated for the purpose that can be, or for a role that can be played without necessarily using the police. Thank you.
Let's hear clarification from Carolio Mondi, then I'll give 1 minute to Kekobo and team, then we close with the CS. Okay.
Thank you very much, Honorable Madam Chair. I think we need to have a common understanding that the royalties are by way of licensing. And the licensing regime is a legal regime established under a statute of parliament, where you are required to pay. So if you are operating without a license, effectively you've committed a crime. And effectively you are subject to arrest by the police. I think we need to have that clarification in our heads. It is not a voluntary payment. This is a payment required by law. It is like operating a hospital without a license. That is illegal. That is already an offense. For which, in other words, what I'm trying to say, the police has to be involved to enforce the law. That's what I'm trying to say. Thank you.
I give this opportunity to Kekobo and the team.
Thank you, members, and the CS for the candid discussion. I think you note that in my presentation I did not hide that there were problems, and I stated that these problems can be mitigated, and I'm very happy that you've opened a window for discussion. I wish to report that there is a pending MOU between Kekobo and the National Police Service, which we can explore quickly. And also to request for an interim measure, which is that when Kekobo officers go to the field, they still need the uniformed police to escort them. Though a few of them may be armed, they still need to inform the OCS. But the OCS, while it may be willing to escort my officers in supporting the CMOs, still recalls that there was a circular issued by the Office of the Inspector General taking away the privilege from the CMOs. So if we could have as an interim measure, as we discuss between the ministry where I come from and where the CS comes from, we could have a circular saying that where the CMOs are accompanied by Kekobo inspectors, they can be given an opportunity to operate in the meantime, just because we really are in a very dire situation with the commitments that I indicated have been made to the president by the CMOs and ourselves. So we really need to manage this. I agree, there was a problem. I kept on reading a lot of news stories about harassment. But there was also a third party called the Talent, Works and Rights, which is a private entity that was imposing on the public, and that was a key extortionists entity. So in a way, the CMOs are victim of the success of that entity, because the entity had people within the police service. So when they moved, when the OCPD moved from one area to another, friends of that entity, they would see the complaints rise in that county, and when they move, you see the complaints where it came from go down, and then rise in another place. So there are bad elements in the police service. We do admit the mistakes. I do admit on behalf of my licensees that the mistakes were made. But it's very critical. It's actually an offense to play music in public without a license under Section 38, subsection 2 of the Copyright Act, as my learned senior Carol Yamondi mentioned. So it's very key. So I would like the CMOs also to speak for themselves. I'll start with Dr. Mutua.
Through the chair, Prof, I would like to make a very specific prayer in the presumption of good faith that mistakes were committed, but we are honorable members of the public and we have come to you and engaged you publicly before this committee and before the media. And you can even see the level of cohesion and the collaboration between ourselves and the Kenya Copyright Board and the guidance of this committee and your office. I want to make some very specific prayers to you. One, that you give in the interim, in the presumption of good faith, that will act in good faith and do the right thing, 6 months at least for this support, so that a message does not go out there that actually musicians are on their own. That the Minister of Government came to this committee and said, no, you can pirate their music, you can use their music in your public events and in your businesses and in your own. Because if that message goes that way, Mr. Bwana CS, then we will have betrayed, we'll have abandoned our people. Professor, this music industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. But it's also very easy to abuse because of the manner in which copyright business operates, because there are so many layers, from the artists themselves who are totally ignorant of even copyright. Some of them who would even sell it for a song. The users themselves who are members of the public, who may not know. People who operate public service vehicles who may not even know. A tout who is not educated about copyright and does not understand what we are talking about. It is on that basis that I would want to plead that a message does not go out there that musicians are on their own. That while we work on this interim measure, and I commit, Professor, that we can even if we be given 5 that we can be meeting with, to send the message there that the police are not withdrawn and they are not abandoning artists, that we can be even filing quarterly or even weekly reports that show where they were given and how the operation is being done, and there is someone accountable through the office of the ED who is reporting and coordinating that operation. To finish, Madam Chair, we were not asking that the police come and stay with us. We are only asking when we need them. In fact, there are some well-meaning business people who call us to pay without even anybody asking them. I went to open a business along Mombasa Road last Friday, and I was invited by a friend, but I asked, have they paid copyright license? And I was amazed to see that that guy, without any police or any of our members calling, had already paid. So it's only where there's abuse, like in public service vehicles. It is in certain areas where we need you. And we're asking that in terms of this meeting, a message is said that in the interim there is something we can do with your office to ensure that musicians do not feel abandoned and the cartels in the industry do not take advantage and send the message that even government does not support you.
I think it was us.
Let's finish with this team.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, Honorable CS. I'd just like to shift the perspective a little in terms of what we're submitting. Honorable Chair, Madam and Honorable CS, we are saying under Section 38 of the law by which we operate, we identify criminal offenses being committed. We have set up a procedure that we use towards identification. It is a 6-step procedure, Madam Chair. It is a 6-step procedure. At the last instance, after issuing demand letters, after issuing a notice of infringement, after issuing several reminders, at the last instance, step number 6, we are now saying this is a criminal offense. Madam Chair, Honorable CS, are we saying when a criminal offense has been committed towards the intellectual property of our creatives, are we saying we cannot get the police to arrest the persons committing a criminal offense? In a nutshell, Honorable CS, that is what my learned senior Honorable Member Karoli was saying. A criminal offense has been committed. We have identified it. We are seeking assistance only in arresting this person who has committed a criminal offense. Madam Chair, I'd even hesitate to ask, does it require an MOU to enforce a criminal offense that has been identified? Do we even need to be discussing an MOU saying, umeiba gari yangu? Let's have an agreement, or now I'll arrest you because Bob umeiba gari yangu. That is to the extent of what we are now deliberating, because we are saying it is so clear, these are the steps, this is the offense, why can't you not arrest this person? That in a nutshell is what we are saying, honorable members.
Honorable members, you know we have a session in the afternoon, and we are already at 1:30.
Very important. This one is very important.
We seem to be going around a vicious circle, so do I just give each one of you 1 minute, yes, then I take back the discussion to the CS?
Yes.
Which hand was up before?
Mine.
Catherine,
thank you.
Then Janet, you had something. Njuguna? Okay, the three of you. Basil, will talk twice. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Very quickly, to all of you seated there. You're doing little to make the public know that what you're asking for actually is illegal or legal. Like people do advertisement, Blue Band, Coca-Cola. If I'm thirsty, I'll think Coca-Cola. So you need to also come out there. Don't sit pretty here in the cities. Go into the village. Huko disco matanga ziko tunacheza tu muziki huko. But they don't know that it's illegal. So everybody in Kenya, whether a grandmother or a child, must know and own and be responsible that piracy is illegal. But it is you to tell us in any language, even if it's Luya, I can translate.
1 minute, Honorable Janet.
Chair, I was just wondering, I had asked a question on whether they have a policy in place on collection of revenues, royalties, and they didn't answer, although he said they have a six step, but the 6th step leads to the askari requesting the CS to actually ask the police officers to assist them to be deterrent for collection of the royalties. But do they have something in place that can guide actually the arrest? And at the same time, the last speaker is actually imputing that the police officers are actually not doing their job, when they themselves should have actually put in place guidelines so that even when they are asked to arrest, to provide the person to court, then they should have provided, because they are not looking at that point that the CS has put in place. So this requires actually an agreement, an MOU. They must agree to sit and put in place a clear plan of how to operate.
Also, just hold on a minute, Honorable Basil. When you look at the National Police Service Act 27H, it says under the functions of administrative police service that they are supposed to rendering of support to government agencies in the enforcement of administrative functions and the exercise of lawful duties. That is one of the functions of the administrative police. So that speaks to, builds on what you are saying, that this is a responsibility. But I thank you for clarifying. You know, what was not clear was the clarification of the situations within which this service was needed. You know, the interpretation at the beginning was that probably you wanted police officers attached permanently to you to help you enforce this. But thank you for that clarification. Honorable Basil.
Yes, I wanted to tell my brother, we are not trying to say that the artists are not supposed to be remunerated through collection of royalties. What is happening is many people don't even know whether they are supposed to pay. Because if you look at the club owners, those who are playing the music, most of them are not aware. So you need to arrange to have a consultative meetings with them, tell them what they are supposed to do, come up with an MOU before you call for a police. So that is what we are saying. Yes, that is going to make your work easier without using police to collect debt. Thank you.
Honorable Joguna.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I would just urge the CS to decline that request. And let's not put our CS on the spot or put him under pressure by coming up with words like, oh, the CS feels like he's abandoning our youth, our musicians. No. From where I sit, the people who are actually abandoning the same youth are the CMOs. So the CS, I urge you, please don't be under pressure. Don't feel they cannot put you on the spot. You have not abandoned anybody. We know your track record. As Kenyans, we are proud of what you are doing on your docket. We know it's not easy. We understand that no are the decisions that you make behind closed doors, but those decisions keep us safe, all Kenyans. So on that one, we are grateful. They cannot put you under pressure. Thank you.
Hello, Honorable Vice Chair. If you have anything, then I hand it over to the CS. Honorable Yegon, you can take that 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. I think I have a different opinion from my two colleagues who have talked after me. You know, musicians, to be very sincere, our musicians in Kenya are suffering a lot. And if we are not careful, we are just talking about these normal hustlers, and we are not just doing the right thing by trying to agitate for them. We need to fight for them. And if money is going to be gotten by trying to put some few police officers to assist these CMOs, so be it. I think let's not try to overstep or to pressurize or to press on these guys who have been suffering a lot. We met them and we saw what has been happening with them. We need to support these people. These are our people. When we are campaigning for ourselves, we normally use them, and we hardly, even some of us hardly pay them. And they are just making us come to where we are. Let's fight for these people. Thank you. I submit.
Thank you, Honorable CS. I think the floor is yours as we come to close.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you.
The speakers who have spoken. Chair, I would like to respond as follows. We are open to having this discussion, and when the committee requires progress, to provide that committee, because I think it's a legitimate discussion. The issues which have been raised are issues of law and the place of the National Police Service in supporting the work that is being done by Kikobo and the CMOs. Number two, as we are aware, the National Police Service is independent. It's independent, and the Inspector General of the National Police Service cannot be given directives by any person or entity except a matter of policy, in which case the cabinet secretary responsible for internal security can issue those directives under Article 245, as I alluded to in my statement. So no arm of government, no entity can direct the Inspector General except on matters policy where those directives can come. That is the product of our Constitution. Number 3 is I agree with the sentiments of the lawyers in the House, led by my learned senior, the member for Suba South, the Honorable Karori Omondi, that part of our misunderstanding as the Kenyan society and much of the developing world is caused by our distinction between offenses against tangible property and criminal offenses against intangible property. That's where the misunderstanding is coming. And if we perhaps try to scrutinize that space, we will then appreciate that the reason why the police protect you, a private person, from a robber who is taking your TV, is because the police must protect you from being deprived of your tangible property. Likewise, a composer of music, a performer of artistic or literary works, a holder of copyright or patent rights, has the same and equal right to be protected by the law enforcement agencies from deprivation of their intangible property. It is property. Intangible property is property like any other. Your TV, your car is as valuable as the intellectual property rights in the music of the composer of that music, or the patent rights of the inventor of an industrial innovation. And I agree fully with my learned senior and the lawyers who spoke after him that we must protect intangible property with the same vigor that as we protect the tangible property. It's property. Because you have something physical, you have land. This other fellow, his property is in the knowledge which has enabled him to sing better than the rest of us. That is his property. The same way, you using your money, you have land, the other person doesn't have land, we protect your land. So likewise, we must also protect the intangible property. And therefore, law enforcement in this case must include the offenses created under the Copyright Act. Those are criminal offenses. And I agree that arrests should be made on people who have committed offenses under the Copyright Act. What we are not agreeable, and which can be subject for further discussion, is if the law enforcement sought by Kekobo and its licensees is support to carry out operations. There is a way in which the police carries out operations. And before any operation is carried out of involving the police, there is an operation order for that specific operation. First of all, there are the standing orders, which are general, how they operate. But if they are doing an operation, there must be an operation order with a commander, with the responsibilities, so that if anything happens there, because they are allowed by law to carry weapons, including deadly weapons, and extreme violence. They use violence sometimes to apprehend offenders depending on the resistance, the level of resistance. So the question which was asked by one of the lawyers from the CMOs, that why are we discussing MOUs and operational protocols for law enforcement? The answer is because it depends. If you are looking for an officer to arrest a single offender of violation of a copyright, one instance, you don't need an MOU, you don't need an operational protocol. But if you say, for example, you need the support of the National Police Service to carry out an operation in some section of town where you have a number of businesses which are violating the law, that is an operation. And an operation cannot go on without an operational order. And secondly, this is an operation like no other, because an ordinary operation would be an operation of the National Police Service officers alone. But now this is an operation involving other agencies who are not police officers. And that's what led to the withdrawal of this, because should anything happen, there must be some accountability. And therefore the discussion on MOUs and operation orders and an operation protocol will be prerequisite, a precondition, so that we know in this operation, so that we don't have officers arguing with each other. Oh, you know, this is our business, we've just called you to, so do what I said. I am the CMO ED, I direct you arrest this one. Okay? And you know now, and maybe the operation commander from the National Police Service, they have their own way of identifying the circumstances of arrest and so forth. So it's not as easy as that. We cannot unleash armed officers combined with civilian officers in an operation of multiple arrests and law enforcement without an operational order and SOPs in place. Number 4, a chair, is that the notion that we are enforcing owners of music productions and owners of royalties of intellectual property to collect debts is not true. We are actually enforcing the law, but now with the caveat which I have provided. Number 5 is the CMOs have asked for interim reliefs because they have targets to meet, and perhaps that is something that we could discuss, maybe not here, maybe after here, and see how, if it is possible, whatever they're asking to be supported and in what circumstances, because we cannot take any action until the assurances which I have said are given. Otherwise we will be defeating the purpose, will be even undermining the decision of government and MPS to withdraw on the reasons which I gave earlier. Of course, the CEO Ezekiel Mutua has talked about good faith, and I would want to add the public interest, because also all public agencies, including the National Police Service, act in the public interest. So if it's a public interest matter for this sector on copyright enforcement, it is something that we should be discussing. And the Honorable Kosgei asked whether the Bishop Emeritus asked whether who convinced that, and you know, he correctly pointed out, I think, because of our role in the ministry to provide policy directives, it's only fair that we coordinate from here, and we are going to take it up. Then, as I end, is to say that I appreciate, is the member for Kangema or Kandera? Kandara, who has very strong views, and I think those views have some logic up to a certain extent. I just wanted to conclude, Chair and members, by saying that this administration, in its manifesto, has committed two things which are important for this discussion. First, this Kenya Kwanza administration has committed to depoliticize all agencies of national security and to make decisions based on the best interest of the country and not the whims of the minister or the IG or an individual officer. And number two, this administration has committed itself to enhance and adhere to the rule of law and constitutionalism. And from where I sit, the request made for the National Police Service to support lawful enforcement of violation of intellectual property rights by criminals who commit offenses under statute. That request is legitimate. Unfortunately, it cannot be processed in the circumstances we are in, and therefore I propose that we be given time. I'll be able to rope in the agencies involved, and then maybe get a time frame which is not too far, whereby we can report to your committee, even in writing, and then communicate to the agency the way forward. The request cannot be processed now, but subject to the assurances and ironing out of the procedural and operational issues, it has some constitutional, legal basis. I submit.
Thank you, Honorable CS. We sincerely appreciate. We know that you're equally busy, but you're able to find time to come and appear before us. We also want to appreciate the COBO and the team, the entire CMO team, and members of the real estate. Thank you so much. At this fourth estate, sorry. At this juncture, I think I want to call the meeting to an end. The meeting stands adjourned until further notice, until further communication. Thank you.